When I was 12, I took a 10-day vacation with my mom and sister, leaving Europe for the first time. It has been over a decade, and I have yet to return home. I was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Russia. 12 years ago, I fled to Canada as a refugee because of racial attacks, ongoing discrimination, and the fear of persecution. My mother is Russian Jewish, and my father is Afghan. Over the years, we have lived through endless abuse from white supremacist groups, the police, and the mafia. My parents tried to shelter my younger sister and me by sending us to a Jewish private school with tall fences, security cameras, and armed guards. In my preschools prior, I have spent years getting routinely beaten. In August of 2012, my older brother went missing. Time is divided into two parts, before and after. Days later, he turned up beaten, with his hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes shaved, and a green cross painted on his back. It was the signature of a white supremacist group, the skinheads, who targeted anyone outside of what was deemed the norm. A week later, my brother disappeared again. We searched everywhere, prisons, parks, and morgues, to no avail. When the police did nothing, my mother hired a private investigator who found my brother in a psych ward. Turned out the skinheads had bribed doctors to drug my brother, hold him there against his will, and test medication on him. We found him in a medically induced coma and moved to a proper hospital. Months prior, my mother had booked a round trip to Canada for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. We left, while my father stayed home and looked after my brother, who developed schizophrenia from the abuse it experienced. The ship was set to make a loop between New York and Quebec. Upon landing in Quebec City, my mother had called home, and my father said that someone had been shooting at our bedroom windows. If we were there, we would have been dead. She realized that if her daughter stayed home, we would have either ended up like her brother, like her son, or wouldn't survive at all. She sat us down and told us to pack only the most essential of our belongings. We were not going home. We put on as many layers as we could to make our bags look light and natural, walked off with other tourists, and ran. We took a Greyhound bus as far as possible so the police would not find us and put us back on the ship. The bus headed to Vancouver. 3 days and nights later, we found ourselves tired and starving in a foreign environment with no idea where we'd sleep and no money. Thanks to selfless strangers, we found the roof over our heads, a food bank card, and a label that would follow us for the next 12 years. Refugees. I know this silence by heart. The audience is uncomfortable, yet ravenous. I could retell this story in my sleep. I have recalled it countless times at fundraising events, newspaper interviews, and awkward Tinder dates. Knowing when to pause and give space for I'm so sorry's. My trauma became romanticized and sensationalized. My family's survival became a source of cultural fascination to Canadians. Every conversation and every interview led back to October of 2012. The glorification of my family's trauma implies that unless born here, our spot in this country must be earned. Who doesn't want to be called inspirational or resilient? Yet, no matter how many badges of honor and awards I collect, I will continuously be reminded of my otherness. This leaves us with a paradox, where trauma is elevated, yet not fully understood. The Western framing of trauma divides lives into before and after. Subconsciously, I began framing my story the same way. The moment I stepped off the Greyhound, I became an idea, a symbol, the refugee poster child seeking salvation and safety, a fact at first, turned into something idealized and distorted. This pattern seeped into social media and a common political discourse. It's easier for the Western eye to insert themselves into foreign stories, creating a good side to cheer for, reducing countries and ethnic groups into catchy Instagram infographics and flashy slogans. I became another thread in this evolving pattern, doing my best to seem grateful and naive. I was the ideal refugee, a poor victim from an unstable country in need of saving by a civilized nation. Look what the girl can do. Her English is great. She is so lucky to be here. The Western eye loves capitalizing off of ideas of resilience. We love our Malala Yousafzais and Terry Foxes. Their hardships became their defining characteristic. One can't have transformation without trauma. Just last year, a scholarship flew me out to Ottawa to lobby for government funding. Over 3 days, I condensed my family's journey into 3-minute snippets for over a dozen meetings. Each thank you for sharing felt like applause for a role I never auditioned for. I was told that the part about my brother's kidnapping was especially thrilling, and to lean into that more at the next meeting. I was once again a neglected little girl, a commodified caricature. The scholarship received the desired funding. I was not invited to the celebration. The hero's journey was first recognized as a pattern in mythology by Joseph Campbell, showing heroes following the same stages on their quest to herodom. This is your Harry Potter and Spider-Man, Katniss Everdeen and Frodo Baggins. Humans are storytellers by nature, seeking out narratives everywhere. Who doesn't want to be the main character? Every plot point in my life has been set up for this. Otherwise, am I just a victim? How can I heal if suffering is the foundation of my identity? Following that idea, I searched for opportunities for resilience everywhere, including on the court. I played for my high school basketball team, where my coach, knowing my parents were unemployed, bought me my first basketball shoes. My skills caught up with my height, and I was recruited to play college on a full scholarship. I began applying the hero's journey to every aspect of my life, be it my parents' divorce or our financial hardships. I met new mentors, developed new skills, and collected new rewards. On paper, the little immigrant girl made her family proud, balancing sports, full-time school, and 3 part-time jobs. In reality, we still lived in low-income housing in an unsafe neighborhood, struggling to pay bills. My mental well-being was at its lowest. I had panic attacks at practices and began self-harming. Amidst the pandemic, I flew to Yukon with the intent of freezing to death. Every hero's trial ends with a triumphant return home. It seemed at the time that I'd never get to that stage. During a global health crisis and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it felt like my main goal, my northern star, will forever be out of reach. Now, with these atrocities far behind me, where would I go? How can small hurdles compare to an event as profound as seeking refuge? I felt everything slipping away into a box of antidepressants in my cupboard. With my varsity basketball career on hold, I felt worthless and alone. On a whim, I packed my bag and flew to Whitehorse, intending to Camp Cloane in January, where nights hit -40 degrees. On my first night, secretly hoping for a grim conclusion, I lay in my tent, purple and shaking, and had a revelation. I was not alone. I was not afraid, just impatient. Alone, in a snowy valley with bears and coyotes, I realized I desperately wanted change, to restart the cycle. That meant returning to the normal world. If it's not St. Petersburg, maybe I could build it somewhere else. I felt something click that I can't quite put into words. Frostbitten and exhausted, I hiked back to the highway where strangers from Alaska rescued me. Sitting in their car, my face burning with tears, for the first time in a decade, I felt alive. I had to shed my refugee poster child persona and build something genuine. Instead of the end to my journey, I had reached the death and rebirth step. If my journey had ended then, I would remain trapped in that box forever. Reconnecting with my community, I received a scholarship rewarding my humanitarian efforts. None of my colleagues knew the details of my past. I no longer let others see me through the lens of what happened to me as a child. I noticed myself change, gaining confidence, purpose, and trust that I know what's best for me. The same teammates who called me slurs in the past were now my DMs seeking recognition. I had to let go of that brand of my suffering to build something genuine. Another transformation was complete. So what was the next step? Cross another threshold. I moved to Toronto, facing new trials and failures, spending my first Christmas and New Year's alone, working 2 jobs 7 days a week made me hungrier for change. Building an identity outside of my trauma, I searched for a routine that surrounded me with people and activities that healed me. I joined a few run clubs around Toronto. Within my first 4 months of starting, I completed my first full marathon. It was painful and ugly, but achingly familiar to the trials of my childhood. This time, sport was universal and unifying. The running community embraced me without asking anything in return, without caring where I was from, where I was headed, or how much I spent on vaporflies the night before the race. It took me years to accept that villains don't always get caught, and happy ever afters don't come in shiny leather covers from the Canadian Embassy. The truth is, ever since I fled, I've been yearning for home. I'm meant to be grateful and content, but God, what I wouldn't do to see it one more time. Oceans away, I can only peek into my childhood backyard through the cold glass of Google Maps Street View. There, the swing is still heavy under my weight. My parents are still dining together. Babushka is still pulling weeds in her garden. I miss something so horrible to me, because despite everything, we were thriving. We left behind memories, milestones, and kind corner store cashiers. If it wasn't for my family sheltering us, hate would have choked me the way it did the white supremacists who tried to kill us. Instead, I grew up missing the nation that wished me dead. All because, as humanity collapsed, our parents read us bedtime stories. When structuring this talk, I was faced with a dilemma. How do I earn your trust and show credibility without feeding into the sensationalist nature of immigration discourse? Am I a snake eating its tail? Have I received this opportunity because of who I am or what I left behind to get here? The truth is, my transformation is the result of my trauma. The difference between a poster child from a decade ago and who you see today is that pain is no longer displayed as proof of my strength, but another screw in my machine, another fading scar. How can I denounce such an integral part of myself to fit the newspaper headlines? Instead of seeing ourselves as either victims or heroes, sides as good or bad, I ask for a deeper, more complete understanding of trauma and healing. What does your hero's journey look like? Whether you're grieving, fleeing, or growing, no matter where you are on that circle, I want you to go home today knowing this. I'm no expert on anything, but the fact that glitter would not heal your wounds. You were just as deserving of love and respect before it happened to you as you are now. Sometimes it feels as though I've never left that cruise. Other times, home is alive and ever-changing. It's more than a place or a stamp in a passport. I'm not 12 anymore. I have lived and grieved 1,000 lifetimes since then. Whether this decade-long vacation ever returns to its point of departure is unknown. But in the meantime, in your presence, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. No matter how far each of us has traveled to get here, today we will all learn, laugh, cry, and complain about TTC delays. Today, we can all celebrate each other's transformation, no matter where you are on your journey, making me believe, even in this moment, that this has been my destination all along. Thank you.